where we should be going live.
Hey,
here.
it's hat day here at Texas Toast.
Every day should be hat day.
Every day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what else every day should be?
You
know.
Fat face day?
No. Well, maybe. Mustache day.
Oh, mustache day. Yeah. Yeah. If I hadn't shaved, I could have a sweet mustache right now.
Your mustache grows in you don't have dark hair.
Correct.
You don't have brown hair. So
no.
Yeah.
On my face? No.
Hey man, on your head?
Yeah. Look at all that gray. It's all gray right there.
But you were a tow-headed kid, right?
I was a blonde.
Yeah.
And then it got dark, later on. But now it's just gray. There's no blonde involved anywhere. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, so Chris, it's good to have you back.
It's good to be back,
shop.
Matt.
You took most of last week off, and you went and had an adventure.
Got sunburned.
Got a sunburn and an adventure.
Yep.
And there's lots and lots and lots of guitar. You haven't even before you got here. Before you got here, I was actually blending in the heel. Did you watch my video yesterday?
I didn't, because I was doing the other.
You had other stuff. Yeah. Well, in the video, I was actually showing people that I was going to be reshaping some heels after the necks were glued in on the new Hustler series, and I did some of them. One of the things that people asked me to do was blend in the heel to the body, like you would if it was a neck through kind of. And I did one today, and I'm like, that's why I didn't want to do this. So I think that looks cool if it's a neck through. It doesn't look as cool if it's a set neck. One of the reasons is because the heel joint kind of changes and the angles are different, and I got an owie on my thumb, sanding and grinding. But anyway, so I did one, and it's okay, but I'm not going to do the rest. So if we ever make more of these and they're neck through, then that would be a way to get that heel transition the way that people think that it's going to work with a set. It usually does.
Yeah.
How about this? A guitar that wasn't designed to have that heel feature looks kind of like it wasn't designed to have it when it has it. Big surprise, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so today we're going to talk for a few moments about vintage versus new.
Okay.
If money were no object, which one would you choose? But Chris, there's always a but.
Right. Everybody's got a but.
Yeah. So, but a lot of people might look at that and go, "Son of a gun."
They might go, "Son of a." It's a long time since that's happened. We never shut it off on these 10 o'clock things.
I know.
And I'm surprised. I think today's the first time that's happened.
Yeah. Insert joke that reads, "Who had 1004?"
Yeah, who had 1004?
So anyway, a lot of people would look at that and go, "Well, obviously, I would want the vintage one because it's worth so much money." And then I just turn around and sell. Well, when you make a deal with the devil, you don't get what you want. There's always a but, right?
Yeah.
So and frankly, if money were no object, you're making a deal with the devil. You know what I mean? So let's say that there's a catch, and I'm going to make it a catch that's not a terrible one. Like you don't have no fingers or something, but you have to play it.
Okay.
In fact, you have to play it all the time.
Okay.
And it has to be the only guitar you got.
Okay. All right.
So modern. Okay. So you get to pick whatever guitar you want, vintage versus new. I guess if something happens to it, you can get another guitar, but it's the only guitar you got. How about that? That way. Okay. So you want to go first or you want me to go first?
Well,
you get to pick the brand. Yeah.
Haha,
you've got a Honda.
You get to, I think I would go, this is a brand new category. I just found this out a few minutes ago. So what I say now may not be what I say later.
That's kind of really we're trying to get to the comments.
We're getting to comments. Yeah. I think I would go with a new guitar, some sort of bespoke thing specifically made for me to fit every little tick, every single box of what I want in a guitar.
Okay, let me add to this. we don't count. Like I can't pick a TTG guitar.
Yeah.
You got to pick.
Yeah.
On
all of this stuff, I
okay.
never think that way. I think more like I'm just some dude.
Okay. Who would you pick?
I don't know. I might. Yeah, I don't know. So part of the problem is I don't look at guitars that much. I don't look at other people's stuff that much. I look a little bit, but I don't look a lot.
Okay.
So
I'm gonna go. I think I might surprise you. I'm gonna go with vintage.
Okay.
Because if I don't get to pick my own guitar, I think I'm gonna go with something like an old Hamer.
Okay.
Or an old Gibson. Not because I think they're better. Well, I mean, Hamer, they don't make those anymore.
Right.
But I don't think that the new Gibsons are better or worse than the old ones. But there's a certain panache with the old one. And if it's my only guitar, yeah, why? Given how much I play, it's like, well, it doesn't really matter.
Well, I thought you said you had to play it all the time.
I know. I would have to. But you'd have to play it daily.
So you'd actually have to start playing.
I'd have to start playing. Yeah, that's right. Plus, I think there's something fairly irreverent about saying, oh, yeah, I have a really cool. And when I say vintage, I don't mean 25 years old.
Yeah.
Or more. I mean 60 or 70 years old. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'd want something like that. Boy, now that I say that, maybe I will change my answer.
So there are no 60 or 70-year-old Hamers.
No, there aren't. No, so you're talking like Gibson or Fender at that, but and a handful of others.
Yeah, and but and we could the whole vintage thing. Just because it's old doesn't mean it's vintage.
No, that's right, and it doesn't mean it's vintage or good.
Yeah, well, guitars made in 2000
are hardly vintage.
They're just guitars that were made in 2000.
Yeah, that's
they're
right.
Really not any different than guitars that were made in 98 or 2014 in a lot of ways.
You know what though? I think that if I could get any guitar back, I think I would. Well, I don't even think I know it would be my my mid 80s PRS that I had in the mid 80s.
Yeah.
I wish I wouldn't have sold that, but here we are. So, all right, let's see what's going on in the comment section and see what everybody else says. Jeffrey Egan says, "Welcome back, Chris."
Thanks, Jeff.
People are saying sup. Jeffrey Egan also says, "If money were no object, I would just like a birth year guitar, 1964. Tiesco Del Rey, right?
Yeah. A Harmony H45. The birth the birth year guitar thing
an amusing concept.
Is kind of fun, except I was born in 1970 and I think there aren't as many cool 70s guitars as there are 1970 guitars as there are cool 64.
Hey, what do you think?
62.
If someone said, "Hey, what do you think the coolest 1970 guitar is?" What would it be? Like an Ibanez or
No, 70 was. I think 70 was a really bad time.
Universally terrible year for guitars.
Hey, check out my new guitar. It's a 1970.
Whoop-de-doo. Yeah. Robbie F says, there is no way I will ever be able to afford a vintage guitar from the 60s. Besides, a new guitar will be better. Yeah, I think you're right.
There's a lot of guitars from the 60s you can't afford.
There are a lot you
don't want them, but you could have them. Yeah.
But I think that he's right. It's remarkable what you can get for not a lot of money these days.
Well, and there was a time when the vintage guitar, the old guitar was the better buy, but that's changed. So now all the old stuff is expensive and the new stuff is better.
There was a guy who commented on my video yesterday, which was all about resale value. And
I'm gonna watch it. I just haven't watched it yet.
Anyway, he was kind of cheating. He's like, well, here's what I do. I only buy used Les Paul Studios. I'm like, well, and the Les Paul Studio is a fine guitar, but like that's okay. You're kind of missing the point to this, which is, I think that I don't worry about resale anything, because one, I've never made money on a guitar or anything like that,
Yeah.
And two, I want the thing that I want because I want the thing that I want, and I'm at a point in my life that I have the luxury of I don't have to go. Well, I have to I only have to have one thing and I have to settle. I don't, you know what I mean? As the older you get, the less you worry about stuff like that.
Well, and I mean, there's lots of different people who own guitars. Not all of them are players. In fact, most aren't.
Most aren't.
And the
especially
phrase,
vintage,
I only buy used Les Paul Studios. Why are you buying more than just one?
Well, yeah,
and
that's a great question. Yeah,
with it, that means and there's nothing wrong with being a flipper or a seller or a guy that likes to buy guitars and look at them and play them a little bit and then move them on.
And I don't know, maybe he's playing out so much that he has to have an arsenal of a guitarsenal on stage that, like, well, I have this one for this tuning, and if a string breaks or something, I honestly don't know. But I've played lots and lots of gigs, and I've moved lots and lots of gear, and I shall never move more than one guitar ever again. If somebody wants to move it for me, that's another thing.
But there's different ways to enjoy guitars, and if buying and selling guitars is your way of enjoying guitars, cool.
Yeah. Brad Guitar Miller says, I had a couple of guitars in the 80s I got rid of, including an original Beretta and my 70s Ibanez. Those are cool guitars. Martin Murray says, I'd take new because I like fresh pots and frets. Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
Yeah. Presumably, if you're, although electronics do just get old on their own without any use.
Yeah, they have a tendency to.
If money were no object, though, you could buy the most pristine old guitars in the world. The literal case queens, and that would be okay too.
I think part of me, I wouldn't do this, but part of me says I'd like to get a really cool old vintage thing and then start modding it. Yeah, I'm gonna grind all the frets off of the 59 Les Paul and put stainless frets in it and get
good
rid of
idea. Yeah,
I'm not gonna do that. 3J Music says a birth year Strat or Les Paul would be cool, but like Chris just said, there weren't any of them that great in 1976. Yeah,
76. Yeah, you could at least, 76. You could get a bicentennial thing. That would be fun.
Brian says 1958 Corina Explorer. I had no idea Brian was born in 1958. And by the way, Brian, it's white limba too, is what it is. I know Gibson calls it that, but yeah. I shouldn't tease Brian because he just sent us a super chat and says ad free for me. Thank you very much. Oh, I don't know if this one is ad free. I think that all these ones get ads added later on.
But if you're tuning in now, right? I think it's ad free.
I can't remember what I did.
Unless you didn't click the button. But
3J Music says, I think I would go with a PRS from back when Paul was building them just because that would be cool. What do you think about that, Chris? I have some thoughts on that too.
Sure.
It's a guitar that you can still get where the guy who Paul might have actually been wandering around the factory in the 80s and may or may not have actually done so. You don't know.
Yeah.
They didn't make that many guitars in the first 3 or 4 or 5 years,
right,
by comparison to, say, Fender or Gibson. So it is likely that Paul could have at the very least played he does play, like Leo Fender didn't really even play. So, and he's still alive. You could maybe get one of those and you could even convince yourself that he had a hand in it. And you might be right. Robbie F says, unlike guitars, a vintage Fender, Marshall, or high-watt amp is better than today's models, and I could afford to purchase one and have it restored, unlike a guitar from that era. Okay, I don't really know very much about, and Joy says there haven't been any ads. Okay, good. Thank you, Joy. What do you think? Are the old amps that much better?
That's that whole tube thing. I think you can get just as good a amp as the old stuff now. Now, whether you can get just as good an amp as the old stuff from the same manufacturer, that may be not true. But I think the reason for that is most people aren't willing to pay for it.
Okay.
For what that amp would cost from that manufacturer. So
Paul says, I would pick option C, which there isn't, used but not vintage. So if money were no object, Paul would pick a used guitar.
Okay.
Cool.
But not pay the vintage.
But not
tag.
pay if money were no object.
Correct. Okay.
Okay. All right. Brian
the
says,
whole phrase "money is no object" throws
I know
a huge curve into everything because money is always an object.
Money always is.
And I've never once said money's no object. I've said
and really
I'm
meant
willing
it.
To spend a bunch of money, but it's still an object.
Well, and the phrase "money is no object" carries a lot more weight at Gruen guitars than it does at Chipotle.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like, yeah, sure. I don't need to check my portfolio if I can see if I can afford guacamole.
Extra chicken on your burrito. Yeah. That's what you say to the. Yeah. I'd like a chicken burrito. Money's no object. Oh boy! They ring a bell.
Yeah.
Everybody comes out and does a dance.
Whoa, big spender here. We got a whale. Brian says actually 1957. When was Brian born? He wasn't born in 1957, was he?
Yes, I think he was.
Oh, I had no idea.
He just had a birthday.
Did he?
Not long ago.
In 1957.
In 57.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Dan says, "Hey, Dan Andreas."
He's older than Brian Setzer.
They have the same name.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's cool.
Doug Seidlitz is here. Paul says, just because money is no object doesn't mean I want to pay overpriced vintage prices. Okay. All right. Well, I guess I didn't say you can't sell it, I guess.
Yeah.
But maybe I did.
Yeah, you did. Okay. You said, one guitar and
So now that you're back, Chris, we can come up with some more ideas for these Shooting the Breeze videos.
The TTGs.
Yeah, exactamundo. Do you have any ideas for maybe? Don't tell anyone, but do you have any ideas for upcoming videos tomorrow? Say.
Sure.
Robbie F says Marshalls are made in Vietnam with subpar transformers and poorly designed boards. Today's Fender reissues have components that are under spec and burn up the boards.
Yeah, that's why I said I don't know that you can get a good or that vintage style amp from those manufacturers anymore. Okay. But I know you can get vintage style amplifiers from other manufacturers.
I was very, very glad when I was lugging around my my SVT. I got it used, and it was a made in USA one. It was the SVT Classic. It wasn't the the silver face thing. Yeah. But I knew I didn't want one of the ones made in Vietnam because I'd heard some horror stories, and that I loved that amp. I just didn't love moving it around. So
that's the thing. Yeah,
it is a thing. Yeah.
But I am constantly amazed at how really good cheap stuff is right now as far as amps and stuff.
You know what? I am constantly flabbergasted at how not like an Ampeg my current setup is. So
yeah. And I'm just saying that as a guy, as a spectator on the side. When it comes time to play, I still like playing old stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But yesterday there was a guy, and he had a little, and it was, just a little jam session, but he had a $140 bass amp that sounded pretty good for what they were doing,
And that's
like, okay, cool.
Yep.
Fair
enough.
Yeah.
All right, gang. Well, if you haven't watched yesterday's video, I would urge you to do it. You too, Chris. And we're going to have to start. I think we're going to have to start a wait list for some of these workshops. Believe it or not, Chris's mystery workshop is wildly the notion is wildly popular.
Yes.
Now, some people have threatened to come and do it. One guy asked me to send him an invoice and then send me an invoice again because I don't have PayPal. Okay, I'm figuring out a way to do it. Dennis, if you're watching, I haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah,
but
and there was some banter back and forth of what that class includes and does not include. So we'll sort that out.
I updated the website. Okay. It includes a body blank and 5 days.
And our smiling faces.
That's right.
For 2 of the days.
Dylan is going to be out here for that. I think we're gonna work and see if we can get the guys or a guy from Casino to come out here, and I want to see if I can get Carlos to come out too because he was the inspiration for that workshop, as I recall. Dan says that Jim's 57 Strat was a good year. Jeffrey Egan says the big difference between old and new stuff is old stuff was built to last, and the newer stuff uses cheaper components and are built for profit margins.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think a lot of that old stuff was built just the way that it was built because that's the way you built stuff back then. You know, you look at a like a Stratocaster tremolo. They used the materials they used because that's what they had. You know, the thickness of the base plate was that thick because that's what you had, and you milled the block out of that stuff because that's what you had.
Yeah, that's the way that you did it. Yeah,
the way that it turned out. So
it is remarkable though how much better things can be now for less money.
Yeah, but as soon as you start building to a price point, then things change. And I know at least with you know the main stuff at Fender, the price wasn't the object; it was the thing, and you built it, and then you set the price.
I'm looking at my shirt. I didn't know I wore this shirt today. One of my very favoriteest rifles in the world is an old Ruger bolt action rifle that I have, and it's not accurate, and it's heavy, and it's clunky, and I paid way too much for it, but I really like it, you know. And I have some other newer ones made by the same company, and they outperform this one all day long. But I don't know. There's just not anything. It's not as cool.
Yeah.
So anyway. All right, gang. Well, let's go ahead and call it a day. We'll see you tomorrow for another one of these shooting the breeze with the TTGs. And maybe Chris and I'll come up with a really fun video. Do you think people like to complain during these or like to say something good? I think you're right. Yeah.
I think there's some of both.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, you can say something good and complain, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
At the same time. Yeah.
All right, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.